Testing live here, testing live here. Can you guys hear me? If you can hear me, just give me a thumbs up. If you can hear me, just give me a thumbs up. I want to make sure my audio is okay. I'm good? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So thank you very much to everybody that's watching me here today. Again, this is Demba Baldeh coming to you live on Gainako Radio and Gainako, obviously, Facebook Live. Last week I was here around about exactly at this time and had a discussion about the letter that was leaked regarding this Gambia Ports Authority and obviously the President's Office as well. Since then, we've seen a lot of developments. We saw a press release overnight, because at this time of the night, if you are watching from Gambia, you know it's already getting late over there. So it was late at night, you know, in Gambia, that the director of Gambia Ports Authority issued a press release trying to dispel, you know, what was going on online regarding GPA's attempts to fund you know, a project, you know, building police stations at the president's village. So I wanted to set the record straight before I move on to today's program. Obviously, I would be discussing today about, you know, why President Barrow should resign at the end of the 3 years. Why President Barrow should honor the 3-year agreement that he gave to the Gambians. I will be discussing that today, and I'll be going into details about why I believe, making a case, why I believe the president should resign. So if you can bear with me, I'll come to that. I would also discuss some certain issues, you know, regarding, you know, some of the discussions that we saw about 3 or 4 ministers, you know, and the government spokesperson came on Kerfatu, trying to discuss about, you know, trying to dispel fears, you know, about the December, you know, 3-year Jotna movement, or trying to, you know, to incite fear that, you know, to threaten citizens that, you know, if they leak information, state secret information, the law could be used against them. I'll be getting into that extensively. I'll talk on that. I also had some discussions about, you know, over the airwaves about, you know, why I said, you know, President Barrow should not resign, because, you know, when he resigns, we're going to have a vice president to take over who is not elected. I will go into that, into details onto that as well. But before I get there, I'm going to have Mamadou Krubali join me later on today. I would also have Flex Dan will be joining me from Banjul and give us a report about, you know, the updates on the ground regarding Killer Ace and other youths who were arrested. But before I get there, what I wanted to discuss right now is regarding the GPA. So you saw, all of you saw the press release that came from the director of Ports Authority, dispelling the notion that, you know, Ports acted in accordance to the law. Port acted, you know, in accordance to transparency. The board was consulted, and the Ministry of Finance was consulted as well. And the GPA director tried to explain to us that GPA, in fact, was using its corporate social responsibility to sponsor those projects. And if you look at the details, and I saw Brother Njundu Drame did a great analysis of the press release. If you break it down, you would see exactly where the loopholes are, and that, in fact, the press release, you know, created more questions. It generated more questions than answered the questions that we were asking as to why GPA should invest public funds into building politically motivated projects, and that's what I call them, like politically motivated projects. I mentioned during last week's broadcast that when President Jammeh was there, that is exactly what he was doing. He was going to GAMTEL, he was going to Social Security, he was going to Gambia Ports Authority, and he was dipping into those funds and financing his projects, his foundations, his, you know, his wife's extra vacant life, and all those kind of bogus projects, buying an $80 million tent for the State House. All those funds were mostly coming from those parastatals. So I would discuss here why those parastatals are created. The Gambia Ports Authority, obviously during Jawara's time, you know, there was a program that was used to create this parastatal to give them a little more autonomy, so they can be able to function independently. They can be able to pay their staff outside of the regular government scale, you know, and they can create more, because if you look at GAMTEL at the time as a parastatal, GAMTEL was able to train a lot of its staff, right? It has excellent training programs for its staff because it was able to do that because it was an independent, more or less like a parastatal. Same thing with Civil Aviation Authority, you know, Social Security. So that program that created those entities as public corporations, they're still part of government, right? But they're at least given some form of autonomy to be able to function and to generate, you know, revenue for the country. But the caveat that you need to understand is that these public corporations owe government loyalty. Okay, their funds are supposed to go back to government, and from the GPA press release, they indicated that they're supposed to pay the government twice a year. Ports Authority makes millions, if not billions, of dollars every year from collecting funds. So is Social Security. So is GAMTEL. So is Civil Aviation. So is Gambia Ferry Services as well. I think they're under the ports now. All these parastatals, right, generate millions of dollars every year. And that is supposed to be paid back to government coffers. So yes, every organization, I mean, I have an HR background. Every organization, you know, should create something like a corporate social responsibility line of account, so they can get involved or engage in activities, right, contributing to society. They can do that, but by no means should that take over, or should that, you know, the public funds be diverted towards that. That should be a completely different budget. So if Social Security owes Gambia government, let's say $80 million that they're supposed to pay into government coffers, and they have the audacity, or they have the right to go ahead and cut those funds and spend it into politically motivated projects. Is that what the laws? Where is our National Assembly to make sure that those things are accountable? Now, if GPA does that, Social Security does that, GAMTEL does that, the Gateway does that, or Civil Aviation does that, then how much revenue is going to go into government? How much revenue is going to go into government? So the GPA director is telling us as Gambians that the taxpayers' money that they owe us as citizens, the taxpayers' money that they're supposed to pay into government coffers, now they can make their own decision with their board. They can make their own decision to sponsor projects out of that money, because that's what the press release says, out of that money. And they tell us that, you know, they also contacted the Ministry of Finance. I'm gonna go into this a little bit as well down the road, right? Mambure Njai was the Minister of Finance during Jammeh's time. He testified before the Jammeh Commission that he did sign onto accounts, he did sign onto checks, releasing checks that were never authorized, that were they never followed the legal framework or guidelines. Same thing with the central bank, same thing with several other institutions. And that is the same Ministry of Finance that is now, you know, GPA is consulting. They can spend funds to politically motivated projects, like building a police station for President Barrow. So I can tell you that that press release is actually, it raises more concerns and more questions. And the Gambia, our National Assembly should be digging into that. And they should be calling the director of Ports Authority to answer questions before the National Assembly. And, you know, Gambia, we should be going after our National Assembly now, because those are the elected leaders that are supposed to be, you know, to be representing our best interests. And they are not doing it. So if there is need to occupy the National Assembly, that's where we need to occupy the National Assembly. We need to protest against our public funds being utilized on politically motivated projects, so people can keep their jobs. So that is the dispel. That is the rumor that I was just, or the press is that is what I'm dismissing of what the GPA. He is out there to save his job. This was the same guy that came before the Jammeh Commission and said that during Jammeh's time, they were using money for bogus projects that were never used legally. This was the same guy. You can Google it. You can go to the Jammeh Commission report, you know, and online, I mean, the Jammeh Commission, you know, proceedings, and you can see it. I shared it on our Gainako page. This was the same guy that was doing it. So it's the same in line. And I'm going to go into details as to why I think President Barrow is out to insult us as Gambians, is out to disrespect us as a nation. Because everything that we fought for right now, everything that we fought for during Jammeh's time, that's exactly what he is doing. Who dominates the cabinet now? Who dominates the cabinet now? You have the Mamburinjai. We have Tangara, right? We just have Captain Fai, you know, who was ambassador here at Washington, D.C., appointed as defense secretary, right? Who do we have again? We have Sonko, Osman Sonko, the person who oversaw the killing of Solo Sandi, the person who oversaw prisoners being, being dragged out of prison and getting executed. Those are the people who are championing our government now. Think about it. Just rationalize it. This is the change that we fought for less than 3 years ago. Every decent Gambian, every conscious Gambian who is aware of our political position and where our country was leading to, knew it wasn't only Yaya Jammeh who was responsible for what was happening. It was never possible. Everybody who comes before a Jammeh Commission or before the TRRC, everybody is blaming Yaya Jammeh. Yes, ultimately Yaya Jammeh was the president. Yes, ultimately Yaya Jammeh was responsible. But I can tell you that there were a whole bunch of Gambian citizens who were responsible. And these are people that we needed to identify. We needed to call them out. And we needed to make sure that they are weeded out of the system. These are people that we need to identify. These are the champions right now who are running our government. The same people that we fought for are the people that are running our government. Captain Fai, all the guy cares about, and I know, usually I don't want to personalize stuff, right? Because I mean, everybody has your own family, everybody have your spouse. I respect that. I have my own as well. But this is about our country. This is about our nation. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's not about President Barrow. It's not about any individual. It's about our nation. And if we discuss you here, it's because you are occupying a public position. I could care less who President Barrow is. I had never discussed about him before he was elected president. Never mentioned him. Did not even know who he was. But I can tell you that when Captain Fai was in Washington, D.C., there are thousands of Gambians in Seattle. There are thousands of Gambians in New York and other places. What did he do? All the guy care about is his own position and safeguarding his own position. When Gainako published an editorial, a story, it was a negative story about Captain Fai. You know what he did? And I'm going to reveal it right here. He picked up the phone. He picked up the phone and called me. I had previously for years, I tried to get him on the line to interview him on Gainako, and he never picked up my call. Never. I left him several voice messages. So when we published that story about, about his job, and how it could impact his job, he picked up the phone and then called me. And he tried to speak fuller to me to say, if you are appointed to serve the public, you serve the public interest. And that's what my interest is. I am not interested in knowing anybody personally or building any family relationship. What I'm interested in is holding you accountable. I hold myself accountable first. We as citizens should be holding ourselves accountable, and then we would hold other people accountable. And that's what we're doing. I could care less who Captain Fai is. I could care less who Sonko is. But Sonko is the one who presided over the killing of Solo Sandi. Sonko is the one who presided. No, anybody who tell you that they were in Jammeh government and they did not know some of these things that were going on, they are lying. They are not telling you the truth. And those are the people that President Barrow is now championing. Let me also touch on a little bit on some of the 4 ministers I saw. I think 3 ministers plus the government spokesperson. Ibrahim Sela, who is actually a good brother, right? I mean, I have very high regards for him. I used to have very high regards for him, and I hope I would still have that for him, right? Ibrahim Sankare. Then you have Ahmed Ba. You have the former Interior Minister Mbalo. All these people came in. You know how what I equate that panel is the panel that Jammeh created after the prisoners were executed. Jammeh created a panel for damage control after the prisoners were executed because there was outrage across the globe about it. He created a panel of ministers, Wajwara and all these people all came together. Aissatou Njie Seydi and others came together, tried to explain. Baba Dinding Jobati was the Attorney General. They all tried to explain that the executions were illegal. Today, we all know the executions. Then we knew they were illegal, and now we know, again, even more, that they were illegal. That panel that was constituted yesterday or a couple of days ago before Kerfatu was the same panel that I equated to. And let me dispel some of the things that we're talking about. They're creating this fear. They're creating this scenario that if you leak, government secrets, or if you leak any memo from the government, you are responsible, you are violating the law. I can tell you that that is false. It is a false narrative. It's a false narrative because you as a citizen, you have the same responsibilities, that you have to safeguard, public confidence or national security. Is the same responsibility that you have as a citizen to make sure that you leak out information that is coming out from the State House, coming out from any sector of government that is damaging to the public. It is the same responsibility you have as a citizen and as a public official. Hell, even President Obama's administration, President Trump's administration, all these people, there are leaks in there. It is patriotic for citizens to leak out. And let me tell you some of the documents that were leaked. The diaspora engagement was leaked. Is that threatening to national security? The diaspora engagement, the strategy of engaging the diaspora, basically trying to quiet the diaspora, is that a threat to national security? The letter that was leaked, with President Barrow sending several people, 18 people for a funeral in Dakar, for a state funeral in Dakar, that was also leaked. What is national security about that? What is national security about the GPA letter that allowing, let me correct the records there, because the 745,000 is only one payment. It was only one payment, partial payment, 20% payment. So that means, that project cost $3.5 million. What is so threatening to national security? So what Ibrahim Sankare and all the other people, Ahmad Ba and others, what they're perpetuating is false narrative, injecting fear in citizens. I can tell you, if you are watching this and you are a government official, you have a duty as a citizen. You have a responsibility as a citizen to leak out information that you think is at the detriment of the security of our country, security of the country or the national interest of our country. You have a duty to do that. That's why we have whistleblowers, and our laws should protect whistleblowers. So leak it out. If it comes to your desk and you think it's at the detriment of the public interest, it is against public interest, leak it out. Leak it out to the media. You have a duty. This is what we call citizen activism. And since we have citizens that are willing to sit down and see the destruction of our nation, and they do nothing about it and say nothing about it, if you're savvy with those, let me just explain this guy. There is no way that Yahya Jammeh could have destroyed the Gambia the way he destroyed Gambia without the help of our citizens. There's no way. He was aided and abetted by our own citizens, people who knew better. But because of their selfish interest, because of their own individual interest, because of the protection of themselves and perhaps for their families, they looked the other way. They did not care. All the blame was going on on Yahya Jammeh. But some of the things, you have seen what happens in the TRRC. How many people are out there? But everybody is throwing Yahya Jammeh under the bus. Yes, he was responsible. I still believe, and I would forever, until my last breath, would believe that he's one of the worst citizens that has ever been born in the Gambia. He's one of the worst citizens that has ever been born in the Gambia. And guess what? He's not alone. He's not alone. We lack sense of patriotism as Gambians. A lot of us lack the sense of patriotism, sense of responsibility to each other. All we care about is ourselves. All we care about is ourselves. It's all about us. And let me make a case as to why I think President Barrow should resign at the end of the 3 years. And I had all the narratives. I had all the narratives saying, I said, what do you call him? I said to Cisse, Dr. Cisse is not an elected person. The same constitutions that make President Barrow the president. If President Barrow were to be out of there today, it's the same constitution that bound whoever takes over the presidency to be accountable to the Gambian people. Just because you are not elected. Let me ask you, God forbid, if President Barrow were to die today, who's going to take over government? Would that be a person that we elected, at least for the temporal period? No. But either you are elected or you are appointed, you're paid by taxpayers' money and you have a responsibility. You are accountable to the Gambian people. So Dr. Aissatou Touré is equally accountable if President Barrow were to resign today, and he should resign at the end of the 3 years. And let me make a broader case. And my case is, since Africa became independent, Africa has one of the vast resources around the world. One of the most important resources, human resources, is what we have. 65% of our population are under the age of 35. There is no way that China, Singapore, Chile, Indonesia, all these other countries can be more developed than the Gambia or Africa. Because we have vast resources, and human resources is the most important thing that we have. But you know why Africa is still lacking behind? And we all know about this. A lot of us know about this. It is because of lack of leadership. We have leaders who perpetuate themselves in power beyond the usefulness of their life. ECOWAS has been doing an excellent job lately. And you look at African countries that are progressing very well. You look at countries like Ghana, you look at like Mauritius, you look at like, even Nigeria. You look at those countries, what they have in common is to be able to transition peacefully from one leader to another. Not one party perpetuating themselves. Now, if President Barrow were to come before the Gambian people, which is the most difficult thing in his life, the most terrifying thing for President Barrow is coming before the Gambian people and addressing the nation. The only time he enjoys is when in front of a public rally. Otherwise, the man is terrified of coming before the Gambian people and addressing them. If he were to come and say that I am going to serve for the 5 years, the constitutionally mandated 5 years. I know I promised the 3 years, but I am going to serve the constitutionally mandated 5 years, and I would step aside. I would never contest the elections again, or at least the next elections. A lot of Gambians would have given him the benefit of the doubt. They would have understand what it is. But Ahmad Ba and others are sitting down and telling us the TRRC is not complete. The CRC is not complete. The Jana Commission is complete, but it's not acted on. All this project. Do you want to tell me that President Barrow is the only citizen of the Gambia who can man those things, who can make sure that those things are completed? Is that what you're insinuating? It is false. It is deceptive. President Barrow could step down today and whatever he can do, another Gambian can do it. And the reason why Gambian and African leaders cannot transition power from one person to another, each person, look at the Gambia, what happened to us. President Jawara was there for 30 years. And when President Jawara wanted to resign, people were crying. They were crying on their knees. They were not crying for the country, they were crying for themselves and for their own selfish interest. So President Jawara failed to resign then. Jammeh came in. Now, when Jammeh left the Gambia, when he fled the Gambia, how many people boarded that plane? How many people boarded the plane with him? It is false. It's a false narrative that only one individual can take the country forward. It is a false narrative. And one of the fundamental reasons why Africa is so backward, Africa is because we're not able to transition through our democracies. And I mentioned ECOWAS doing an excellent job of maintaining peace and stability in Africa. They even introduced a time limit. They encourage all nations. It was only Gambia and Gabon that refused to sign up to time limits. So ECOWAS a threat to ECOWAS peace, stability, and maintain stability. The whole world was so impressed with the kind of solutions that they had for Gambia to have Yahya Jammeh out of there. It wasn't from the United Nations. It wasn't from from NATO or from the EU. It was from Africa. It was from West Africa, for that matter. Our leaders got together and they crafted a plan. Well, you know what is a threat to that plan? It's people like President Barrow perpetuating themselves in power. We are not asking President Barrow to do anything he has not promised. We're not. We're not asking him to do anything he has never said he was going to do. What we're asking him to do is to honor what he had promised to the Gambian people. And what he had promised to the Gambian people was that he was going to step down in 3 years. And now what we're hearing is not only 3 years, but 5 years, but 15 years. Selfish individuals that are surrounding him that have not had a regular standard job for 15, 20 years, those are the people who are protecting their interests right now. That's why they don't want President Barrow to leave. Who is advising President Barrow? What the Gambian people are asking you to do is something that you promised the Gambian people. A man is, a human being is as good as your words. If you cannot honor your words, then what else can you honor in your life? What else? So that is why we as Gambians were asking President Barrow he should resign at the end of the 3 years. And there is no excuse. I had press releases from other political, and this is beyond any political party. This is not a partisan issue. This is a national issue. And that's how we should approach this. And they're scared of the 3-year journey. That's not what we're supposed to be scared of. That's not what we're supposed to be scared. We're not supposed to be scared of citizens having a right to assemble. And you know what? The oldest form of democracy, the oldest form of removing leaders who want to perpetuate themselves in power, is not through the ballot box. It's through popular uprising. It is a legal means for citizens to rise up and demand that their leaders resign. It is legal. So don't sit there and tell us that the threat of people protesting is a threat to national security. It is not, unless you decide to take weapons against those citizens. So what we're saying is that President Barrow should honor, and in fact, Gambia, sometimes when you look at some of these things, when we all gave President Barrow an opportunity. We all gave him an opportunity. We all gave him a chance. And the best way to judge a leader's competence, the best way to judge a leader's ability to lead, to learn and grow on the job, is the kind of decisions that they make. The kind of decisions that they make. When President Barrow started making decisions or hesitating in even making decisions, leadership, you have to be bold as a leader. You have to make decisions and live with the consequences. But some of the passionate decisions, the passionate decisions that he made from inception raises a lot of questions. Who tells you that Mambure Njai is more patriotic or is more competent than former finance minister? Who can compare those two? And who can tell you that, who can justify that Mambure Njai would protect the interests of the Gambia more than the former finance minister? Who had austerity measures? Who ensured that our budget was under control? Our vehicle transportations were under control. And you want to explain, you want to tell the Gambian people that Mambure Njai is more patriotic than, because Mambure Njai would protect the best interests of the Gambian people over that person. So since 6 months after President Barrow got into power, I went to Gambia and I met him a year after. But 6 months after he got into power, when he started making some ill decisions or hesitating on making decisions, it raised some red flags for me. No matter how long you have given the person, he doesn't have the ability to grow or to learn and grow. He said to us when we visited him that I'm learning on the job. But what has the president learned? 3 years and now, almost 3 years, what has the president learned? Tell me one thing that he has learned. And I heard Ibrahim Sankare saying that, now you can say something and nobody would arrest you. Now you can protest and nobody would arrest you. And now you can do a lot of things and you cannot compare them to Yajam. The peace and stability that are in the Gambia, the change that happens there is not President Barrow's creation. It was imposed on him. It was natural that anybody who came into power after Yahya Jammeh would have to set up a TRRC, would have to do CRC, we have to do a lot of things that he has done. So it's no brainer. It is no brainer. Those are the least we expect of you. It's, thanking your government or being grateful or worshiping your government because they have done the things that they are supposed to do. It's like somebody posted on Facebook, it's like going to the ATM and then the ATM give you your cash back. And then you say, thank you for giving me my money back. That's what it means to worship your government after they start building roads. They start spending people's money. That's what you pay them to do. You pay a contractor. If they don't do the work, what do? You kick them out. You thank your contractor for you paying them to do the job. Or you worship them for that matter. It's the height of ignorance. It's the height of ignorance. So this is why we believe that President Barrow should resign at the end of the 3 years. Dr. Aissatou Touré I was one of the proponents. I was one of the supporters of Dr. Touré to become president, to be a compromising candidate. And I have said this publicly. But I've been disappointed by Dr. Touré. I don't know her. Again, I discuss people only here because they're holding public office. Otherwise, I could care less about them. I will never talk about them. But when Dr. Touré was appointed Minister of Employment, Youth and Employment, what happened? What happened? Since he became Vice President, what platform did you see her standing up and motivating our women or motivating our young girls or our youths? She moved to health. What happens there? Nothing. Nada. Zero. It's a disappointment on her side. An absolute disappointment on her side. And I know a lot more people are disappointed. What we want in Gambia, we want bold leaders. We want leaders who can motivate our youths. When was the last time President Barrow was on TV talking to Gambian youths, giving them courage to stay in the Gambia and to develop? When he started first, he started narrating his stories, going to the UK and coming back and building his own business. That was his storyline before he started pivoting to political ambitions. That was his storyline. And that's the storyline that our youths need. They'll need to look up to somebody that can encourage them, that can look them in the eye and say, you can do better. You can make it right here in our country. You don't have to risk your life to die through the back way. President Barrow, when was the last time he sat down on TV and say something that motivates one person apart from somebody who wants a political appointment? He couldn't. It's a weakness in him, and he admitted it. He said even whereas there was a UDP, a rallies, he was shy to talk on the rallies, on the political rallies. You found yourself as the most powerful person in the country, and yet you still don't have the courage. You don't have the conviction to stand there and face the nation and talk to the people. In a 24-hour news cycle, the president cannot address the nation, except when there is visit to the State House or when there is a political rally somewhere. And before you trust somebody or before you know what a man is made of, give him power. There is two things that jeopardizes a man's humility and a man's integrity: power and money. Power and money. When President Barrow said to me, to us when we sat down before him, and he said, I'm learning from all of you. I would like all of you to get engaged in the Gambia. It was inspiring. But looking at it from a distance, I see a man who lacks the confidence. I see a man who doesn't have what it takes to lead. You can give him 25 years. People are saying give him time. And that is why when people were talking about transition, I wanted a 6 to 9 month transition. I wanted 6 months transition, because the African leader, if you give them power and they test it once, they're going to want to go further. I see Karamba Touré is posting that the board rejected the request to refund the police station, to fund the police station. I thought the press release from the GPA said that the board was consulted. So why would the board then reject the request to build those police stations? You don't have to take my word for it. Look at the contradictions. The writings are on the wall. This is what we call legalized corruption. Legalized corruption, they find a way to defraud taxpayers' money. They create per diems. Some of them, put their families as part of a delegation coming to the US or going to Europe. Some of them just get their friends and put them as part of a delegation, or just to get per diems. This has been going on for a very, very long time. It's a way they found a way to defraud the public. So if the board was consulted, why are they rejecting the funding now? The National Assembly should be writing directly to the Ports Authority and demanding that whatever is owed to government be paid on time and not a day late. And those funds should be accountable. Those funds should be paid. Social Security, GPA, Gambia Civil Aviation, all these parastatals should be paying their dues to the government. And they should not spend a dime more than what is approved in the budget. This is taxpayers' money. There is false narrative coming up in the Gambia, and Gambians, we have to stand up and speak out. And not only speak out, but we have to act. In everywhere we are, we have to act. If you're in government, as I mentioned this again, you have a responsibility as a citizen. It is time we have citizens who are controlling power, or who are holding onto positions, public positions, that look at look for the best interest of the country, and not themselves. Everybody that you see there is building a mansion, a big house for your salary. Are you kidding me? So I want to go back to President Barrow. And this is not impersonal. I have respect for him as an individual. I have respect for him as a president. I have respect for the presidency of the office of the president. And every one of us is expected. But I can tell you that we must not hesitate to call out the leader who is out there neglecting the plight of the Gambian people. And you have to look at how President Barrow got to where he is and what he has done within the shortest possible time. Even Yahya Jammeh took longer to betray his partners than President Barrow. There is no way that President Barrow would have ever got into the position if he has not really on the platform of the UDP. There was no way, or at least another political party. But where are those people now? Where are those people now? And I know, Gambia, we have this mentality that your enemy's enemy is my enemy. It's false. You have to look at the person's relationship with the people that he worked with the most. And when President Barrow stands on any platform, he's talking about his future. I did this, I did that. Where is the humility? Where is the support that was coming from all his partisan folks? And if he can betray his own political party, who is he going to leave behind? If he had fired my party. And that's exactly the same thing that he did to Mbalo, because he's a friend to Mbalo, and he's going to dump Mbalo somewhere in the foreign service for his political ambition. What President Barrow is displaying is clear political ambition, and he's not talking about anything. Anything that he has done is to perpetuate himself in power, and that is what we fundamentally have a problem with. You promised the Gambian people that you were going to be there for 3 years, and you need to leave by at the end of the 3 years. Let somebody else come in, and we are also going to hold that person accountable, and we will do the reform. He is not capable of implementing the reforms that were promised to the Gambian people. And you saw the European Union, you saw the US government recently. You saw all those people raising concerns, alarms about the situation in the Gambia, about security in the Gambia. And you know what he has done? I saw a colleague posted that President Barrow was thinking about security when he brought in Captain Faye, and when he brought in Usman Sonko. Are you kidding me? The very people who presided over the killing of our citizens, who presided over the raping of our women, who presided over the killing of our students, and the maiming of prisoners, the overnight torture, those are the people that are championing our democracy right now. There isn't a bigger insult to the Gambian people and to the Gambian electorate themselves. There was a reason why you went to the polls and you elected against President Barrow. In fact, President Barrow was not elected based on his own merits. He came to power due to a protest vote. People were voting against Yahya Jammeh. Even if you had put up a donkey, they would have won Yahya Jammeh at the time. It was a protest vote. There was nowhere that President Barrow had any merit over the other people. If it was qualification or it was experience, Halifa Sallah had more experience than President Barrow. Ahmad Bah has more experience than President Barrow. All those people who contested have more experience than President Barrow. So it was a protest vote that Gambian people did. And that's why President Barrow, anybody, as I said, could have won that presidency. But you know, Gambia, it is so sad. But one thing that I personally feel so guilty about, I just hate to sit down and complain about things. When you come to me for an issue, a problem, the least I can do is to craft a solution. And I think we have a solution. We have a solution to our political predicament. And let me give you a broader picture. Look at all the international institutions that the Gambians are serving. Look how much they excel in any institution. There is every one of you who is watching right now, or who is listening right now, knows some very, very smart Gambians that you look at them, you're like, wow, you yourself are very, very smart. You are smart people. You can do better for our country. We have citizens serving in higher institutions, excelling everywhere. You go to the US government, you go to the United Nations, you go to the World Bank, go to African Development Bank, go to the Islamic Development Bank. We have Gambians serving in top positions. They excel. But you know why they excel? There are people that created a system. A framework was created where these people can come in with their talent and they can function very well. That system, that framework is what we lack in the Gambia. This government should be hiring people, experts to come in and build databases for our police station. They should build databases. They should build structures. Hire people, pay people, even if it's expensive. I mentioned I worked in HR. I've seen experts being brought in to create a system and hand over that system to citizens so they can function. So bring in those experts. We have Gambian experts now that you can send out to go training, or Gambian experts that can come in. I am a part of a list of Gambian scholars created by Dr. Sen and others. Some of them are policy hawks. Why can't those people be brought in to help us craft out systems, create systems? It's not about being an intellectual or whatever. Every human being has some level of intellectuality. It is who can create a system. We have young Gambians who are very, very smart, who have created systems, multi-million corporations. Allow those people, engage them, even where else on a contract basis, to come in and create a system. And I'm going to give you an example. And I did this, and I challenged Tough Construction when they came to Seattle. And I said, you are building an empire, a multi-million or even a multi-billion corporation. Why can't you champion a real estate industry being crafted whereby the government is going to register every real estate agent in the Gambia that is going to sell any real estate transaction? Every real estate transaction in the Gambia must be documented. All those agents would be licensed. That would be revenue for the government. Now, if Tough Construction can go to Nigeria and team up with states in Nigeria and build multi-million-dollar projects, why couldn't they do the same thing? Why? And if we want to address the issue of housing project by Gambia, we need to start building affordable housing in the provinces. Build an affordable housing in Brikama Ba, in Soma. And you see if those civil servants are going to come back to Combo. Everybody is sitting down around the Combos. Why couldn't companies like Tough Construction, QTV, Why couldn't government contract expertise like that? But at the end of the day, companies like to progress. They like to become multi-millionaires and multi-billionaires when the rest of the country is wallowing in abject poverty. Where is the patriotism in that? You can progress, you can build a multi-trillion-dollar company. But at the end of the day, everybody around you is struggling. You cannot survive in the long run because all these people are going to depend on you. So I'm saying, Gambia, we have expertise. We have intelligent citizens that are serving in higher institutions that can come back to our country and they can build structures and our citizens can function in those structures and they can deliver. We have very, very, very intelligent Gambians across the world, excelling very well. But how can you, when you compare that to what is happening in the Gambia right now, how can you reconcile those differences? How can you reconcile people like the late Dr. Sane, may his soul rest in peace, serving in one of the highest institutions in the US, in Yale, lecturing in Harvard. You have citizens like that, numerous citizens like that. And we cannot replicate those kind of talents or those kind of contributions back to our country. Something is fundamentally wrong. And I think the buck stopped with our leadership. It is a leadership structure, leadership problem that we have. And this is why, pivoting back to President Barrow, he should resign at the end of the 3 years. That is what he promised the Gambian people. And I can guarantee you that if he can get away with the 3 years, he would get away with the 5 years. He can get away with 15 years. That's what he's eyeing. Some of the people that are advising him, that are close to him, I mentioned, they never secured a regular job for 20 years. They cannot compete on a level playing field. And you think those people are going to advise President Barrow to leave power? If President Barrow were to leave power today, or at the end of the 3 years, he would forever cement his legacy. He can be an envoy of ECOWAS, or even the United Nations. He will be sent to different countries for peace building and for lecturing people as to how to do leadership. When Mandela came in, he served for only 1 term and he left. President Barrow is not planning on serving 5 years. He's planning on creating a political party and perpetuating himself in power. I would have given him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt if I see any sign of competence. If there was any promise that our people would be any better, our institutions would be changed, at least Gambian people would have had a second thought. But no. How can we be so unfortunate? How can we be so unfortunate? So this is why we think President Barrow should go at the end of the 3 years. Dr. Toure would come in for 2 years. She can do whatever she wants. We can hold her accountable and hold everybody else accountable, and we go to election in 2021. Don't tell me, don't give me this excuse that Dr. Toure was not elected, and therefore we elected President Barrow, right? And who does he appoint? He appointed Dr. Toure. By virtue of our electing President Barrow, Dr. Toure is equally accountable. The Vice President is equally accountable. So we think that President Barrow must go, or should go, at the end of the 3 years. If he defied the 3 years, citizens have a right to get out there and have a peaceful protest. And I mentioned that is the oldest form of democracy, the oldest form of holding your citizens accountable, your leaders accountable. Popular uprising and popular protests. We've seen it across the world. It's happening in Hong Kong right now. It is happening in every part of the world. It is legal for citizens to gather and protest. Yes, we mentioned this. It is our responsibility as citizens. If the Gambia belongs to all of us, why should I go out there and vandalize stuff? People who go out there and they vandalize stuff, they're violating the law. But that's not an excuse for us to deny citizens, with law-abiding citizens, to deny them the right to protest. It's not an excuse. And Gambia, I mean, we have to recognize what is happening before us. What we all cried for or cried against. What we all fought against during Yahya Jammeh's time. Our citizens perpetuating themselves. Our citizens helping Yahya Jammeh destroy our country. Those are the people who are now in charge of our government. Now, if you're a Gambian, you are a Gambian who is conscious, fully conscious of who you are. You are fully conscious of our recent history. You get into a ballot, and then you elect a president who appoint the very people who oversaw the slaughter of our students. You appoint the very people who oversaw the killing of prisoners being executed. Those are the people who are more security conscious than the rest of us. There is no Gambian out there who can become defense secretary and not Captain Fai, who has been crisscrossing the country, doing everything possible for Yahya Jammeh to keep him in his position. He only capitulated, he only went against Yahya Jammeh after he calculated that Yahya Jammeh was no more and he was out at the door. That was when Captain Fai decided to call against Yahya Jammeh. Other than that, everything that he was doing was to protect his own position. And those are the champions of President Barrow. Everybody that President Barrow fought with, pretty much, is out. And Gambia, this is what we fought for. This is what we fought for. That Usman Sonko and others, that the Mambure Njais who signed onto the looting of our state coffers. Those are the people who are holding the custody. That Tangara and others who have crisscrossed the wall to deport our citizens back to be killed. Those are now the champions of our democracy. You bring in Usman Sonko, you bring in Captain Fai, and you want to maintain security. What kind of security do you think is going to happen in the Gambia? The only security these people know is opening the prison gate for other people to come in and kill them, and kill our prisoners, kill our citizens, maim them. What happened to Ibrahim Chongar as defense minister? What happened to Omar, Pa'an and others? So many Gambian, young Gambians that were out there that never bought into Yahya Jammeh's craziness. And now the only people that President Barrow saw, the only people that he see eye to eye are those people. You know, Gambia, what is happening? It's a political ploy. We have to see it. Dr. King said to face our enemies, to recognize them, and to deal with them. That is what President Barrow is doing. He's eyeing for votes. So that's what I'm telling you, that he's not only eyeing for 3 years, Jodna, he's also eyeing for not the 3 years, but the 5 years, but the 10 years. That's what he's eyeing for. And do not be sidetracked by those people sitting out there and saying, whether you like it or not, President Barrow. We had those slogans before. If something were to happen, they would run for their life. So the case that I'm trying to make today is that President Barrow promised us 3 years. We have to hold him accountable to the 3 years. And it is unfortunate that our coalition leaders have decided to look the other way. They've decided to look the other way. We know them. Now, if you and I join something and you decided that you don't want it anymore, you decided you don't want anything anymore, you don't want it, what should I do with it? If we have a joint bank account together and you decided you no longer want the funds in there, what do I do with it? I'm going to abandon it too? That's what happens with the coalition. Yes, we know our system is an executive system, is run by the executive. But there was no way that the coalition would have ever allowed President Barrow to get to where he is. No way. There was no way the coalition would have allowed him. If the coalition has met from the beginning and engage the ECOWAS, engage the United Nations, and say, this is the reason why we engage all your partners so that our country doesn't turn into violence or into political chaos. They would have listened to him. They would have listened to them. But no, they sit down there and they start blaming us, Gambians, the electorates. They start blaming individuals. There is enough blame to go around. Forget about the blame game and stand up as a citizen and make sure that our country gets what it deserves. That is what we require. That is what patriotism is all about. You can blame people all around every time. But we want our citizens to stand up and start acting. Make sure that they protect the best interest of our country. We have brilliant citizens. You know them, I know them. That have created institutions, that are running institutions around the world. But no, this is the kind of mediocrity that we ended up with. And I mentioned this before, one of the reasons why we keep ending up with the likes of Yahya Jammeh and the likes of President Barrow. Mediocrity is because our best and brightest have decided to look the other way. Our best and brightest have decided that their education or their dignity is worth more than sacrificing for our country. This is what we're having in the Gambia. The only reason why we have mediocrity leaders is because our leaders who are supposed to be leading us decided to look the other way, or decided that it was too risky to get into it. That's why when Bibi Dabo and others, decided to form their own political parties, I said the more the merrier. It is time our Gambian citizens come out and offer themselves, offer their programs. Do not hesitate to go out there and form your political party. Bring them up. Form your political parties. Offer your program to the Gambian people and give us the opportunity to assess you and your programs. There's no reason why you should be afraid to face the Gambian people and show them that this is the program that I have. No reason, absolutely. I had Mamadou Krubali was going to join me on here. I think he is watching. If you are watching, Krubali, go ahead and join me. Flex Dan is supposed to join me from Gambia to give us an update. And I would see if he can join us. Krubali, if you can join me, please do so. If any one of you want to join, absolutely, you're more than welcome. And again, what I'm doing is I'm making a case for President Barrow to resign at the end of the 3 years. President Barrow should resign at the end of the 3 years because he had promised us 3 years, and we must hold him accountable to his promise. If he goes past the 3 years, every Gambian must be conscious that at the end of the 5 years, he must go. He must go through the ballot box. Because everything that we fought for, he's now going against it for his own personal interest. His own personal interest. Especially to our young people. I want to appeal to you personally. When Dr. King became the president of the Southern Baptist Church, you know how old he was? When Dr. King started mounting the platforms and advocating, you know how old he was? 26 years old. It was in his mid-20s that he took up leadership. He stood and he led with conviction, with morality. Our young people can do it. Step up and lead. Do not allow yourself to be used by anybody whatsoever. You have what it takes. You have the talent. You have the resources to do it. So I appeal to you to get off the fence and get involved. And don't allow anybody to use you anymore. A nation cannot prosper without the blood sacrifice of its citizens. And I repeat that again. A nation cannot prosper without the blood sacrifice of its citizens, without the sweat of its citizens. Democracy is not free. The freedom that we're enjoying in the United States, in the UK and other places, people paid price for it. So right now, in every corner in Gambia, everybody's talking about President Barrow. Everybody's talking about the government because we have lost hope. The only people that are clinging to it are people who are protecting their own selfish interests. But we know President Barrow doesn't have what it takes to lead us. We've all seen it. We've all seen it. Flex down, if you are watching, I see you calling me on my phone. If you are watching, please join me on Gainako Radio Live, on Gainako Facebook Live. I can't take you on the call. You have to join me live. Krubali, I'm waiting for you if you can come in. And again, Gambia, I talk about this. How many of our youths died in the back way? How many of our youths are sitting down in Europe and other places without a job? How many of our youths are being chased out in America? How many? When are we going to have the leadership that we deserve as a nation and as a people to take our country to the next level? I'll talk about agriculture a little bit. If we know that agriculture is based on water, crops grow based on water, whether it's natural, irrigation, or wherever the water comes from, that is what grows our products. Why should we wait for the natural rain? If we know that corn would grow because of water, whether it's natural or it's irrigation, why should we wait for that, for the natural rain? God has given us the talent. God has given us the resources for us to look and tap into it. But we are sitting down and complaining about the rain not coming. What can we do about it? You know what we can do? This government can build a borehole in every village. This government can finance citizens who are willing to go out and farm and convert our farming into commercial farming. But we must begin to hold each other accountable. We must begin to hold each other accountable, especially our elected leaders. Forget about the politics of it. Forget about the partisan issue. You're blaming UDP. This is UDP. And you know, Gambia, we're so good in boxing our citizens. You say something one time, people want to box you in everything. He's a Fuller, he's a Jola, he's a Mandinka, he's a Sarakule, or he's UDP, he's PDIS, he's this, he's or that. Why does it matter? Yes, these are political parties. They are vehicles through which we can change our government, through which our government can be run. But at the end of the day, even if you are supporting one party, I'm supporting the other party, you might one day need me on the same table. So why does it have to turn to violence? Why does it have to turn to enmity or to insults? Why? It is really, really sad, but I mean, it is time for us as Gambians to get together. And again, you know, the case I'm making is that President Barrow must, President Barrow, I cannot say must. I don't want to say must. Because at the end of the day, we want our citizens to use the democratic means. And I can tell you that a popular uprising and protest is a democratic means. And I'm going to say one more thing here. The people who are perpetuating that there was peace in the Gambia, it is false. It is false. Dr. King said peace is not the absence of war. It is the absence of justice. There was terror in the Gambia. Yes, there was no open killings in the streets, killing each other, but there was terror in the Gambia, rain on our citizens. Our citizens were being killed on a daily basis. And those killings were done by one side, not the other. So the only time you define war is when two sides are fighting each other. Is that what war is? In the absence of that, that's what you define as peace. What about the idea of you having the peace of mind to sit in your home, nobody comes and arrests you overnight and you disappear? What about the idea of you having a right to a job? What about the idea that you having a right to due process of the law? Our government rained terror on our people. Our people were being killed. You hear it and you see it. And a lot of people were in denial of it. But a lot of us mention it so many times. There's so many examples that we've given during the struggle. So you telling us that when there was peace in the Gambia, and therefore you need to bring in these people who presided over the killing of our citizens. What kind of peace are you talking about? When Solo Sanding and others were killed, that was peace. When the students were massacred, Didi Hydra and others were killed, that was peace. What about the peace of mind of their families? What about the people who heads were being beheaded? What about the people that were being beaten on the streets? I contend that there was no peace in the Gambia. There was terror in the Gambia, perpetuated by our government that was handling, that we were paying. So don't tell me that peace thing. You want peace as much as I want peace in the Gambia. You want peace as much as I want peace in Gambia. So they tell me that my right to protest is a threat to your right to live peacefully. It's not true. It is false. But we have to take President Barrow for who he is, and we have to challenge him for what he's trying to do in the Gambia. And what he's trying to do in the Gambia right now, what President Barrow is doing in the Gambia right now is to slap us in the face. If you are a struggler, whether you support him or you oppose him, the people who perpetuated Yahya Jammeh, those people are not your champions. When did people who sign up the bank account to defraud our nation, when did those people become champions for us? When did they become champions for us as citizens? This is what President Barrow is doing. That's what President Barrow is doing, a slap in the face. Whatever you guys struggle for, whatever money that you contributed, it all doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He got what he wanted. He got to where he wanted to go. And therefore, you all don't matter. Your concerns don't matter. Nobody cares about your concerns. He's going to bring in anybody that he wants to bring in. Even though we're the one who's paying his salary. We're the one who's protecting his family. You know, it is an insult to see people, some of the people that are surrounding President Barrow, have them as advisors, turning into our state house into a political jamboree ground, like we had in Kanilai. Where is the morality? Where is the conviction? Where is the consciousness that we as a people deserve better? We deserve better leadership. We deserve a better standard of living. We deserve better healthcare. And buying equipment for the hospital here without overhauling the structure, the administration of the hospital. Building one road here and there without accounting for the funds, all the millions that have been borrowed from the United Nations and the European Union, Japan and other places. That is what you call progress. That is what you call progress. Our schools, our students, I heard Ahmad Ba said, you know, they are going to create about 3,000 jobs. It's almost 3 years. And you know what they're terrified about? They're terrified that the 3-year job now in December is the tourism season. When Yahya Jammeh was dissipating our country and everybody flew to Senegal, how many tourists did we have? How many tourists did we have? And what was the cost of that? You know, sometimes when I sit here, I get agitated because, you know, I mean, you know, our country is being insulted, it's been raped left, right, and center, and we as citizens are not able to do anything about it. And individually, we strive in our individual success. I am this, I am that. This is what I have. This is what my family have. At the end of the day, our country is a laughing matter. What is our pride as Gambians? What is our pride? When you go to Gambia right now, tell me one thing that is your pride. What is your pride? Seeing beggars in the street, inhaling dust all over the place, that is our pride. Yes, we now have peace in the Gambia. That is your pride. When somebody gets sick, by the time they get to the hospital, they are dead. Some people are buried dead. They're buried alive. When our young women are being pregnant and they're bearing babies on donkey carts, and you from the city, you think that is my problem because I'm from the village. The villagers pay tax. They don't have roads. They don't have hospitals. They don't have clean drinking water. They don't have schools. What are they paying their taxes for? What is their loyalty to their government for? What is the loyalty for their government? What is it for? Why should they be supporting any government when they don't have water, they don't have food, they don't have roads, they don't have hospitals, they don't have schools, they don't have security protection? What is the purpose of those people? Why should they be voting for any government? So you're telling the Gambian people to put you in power so you can be better than them, so you can build police stations in your village, so you can build hospitals in your village. What about my village? What about his village? What about his town? And those people are all paying taxes. And we sit back as Gambians. And we have the biggest egos on our heads. Yeah, diw sangam lila def, diw sangam lila def, diw sangam dem na fi, dem na fale, lila achieve, lila achieve. At the end of the day, put all our collective achievements together. Put all our collective achievements together. You drive from Serekunda to Banjul or from Banjul to Bijilo, or you go the other way around. Everybody is complaining. You all complaining. And yet there's nobody who can do anything about it. That's an excuse. Our generation has a responsibility. Our generation has a duty to ensure that we live a better nation. Our pride is not our individual success. Individually, we can all take care of our families. That's what it's about. You ask President Barrow today, he's going to tell you that he wants his sister that is in Mankamang, or his mom that is in Mankamang, to live a better life. But he doesn't take what it takes to do what is, you know, why something that her mom and his mom and other people's moms and citizens are going to live better. What we lack, Gambia, is leaders. Leaders with courage, leaders with conviction, leaders who care about their legacy, leaders who care about the little girl that is walking barefoot on the street, leaders who care about the young girls that are sitting, that are having babies and the babies dying in RVH. That is what we need. We need leaders who care about the next door person, leaders who can inspire a generation. We need new generations of leaders in the Gambia. They are going to say, this is not about me, it's not about you, it's about us as a collective nation, as a people. Every one of our citizens deserves a better life. But we have our leaders collecting millions, and they go to bed and go to sleep. We have our lawmakers who doesn't have the guts to stand up and hold our elected leaders accountable. It is an Osusu. So Solaso. If you cannot beat them, join them. We have people who were here struggling, with people, the likes of Ibrahim Sankare, who had all kinds of editorials. Now he's sitting down there because he's getting paid by government. He's sitting down there now and he's telling us that this government is doing its best. Bring in the very people. Go to Gambia Echo and you find out that what Ibrahim Sankara wrote about the Usman Sonko. Go find out about what he wrote about Captain Fight. So where is the honesty and integrity? Where is the dignity that we are parading out there? Where? So every time that you are part of the system, you're cool. And you know what I'm afraid of, Gambia? I'm afraid that those of us who are on this side now, if we find ourselves as part of a future government, are we going to act the same way? If you find yourself in a UDP government, are you going to be defending exactly the same thing that is happening right now? If you find yourself in a PPP or a PDOS government, are you going to be defending the same thing that is happening right now in the Gambia? That's my question to you. That's my question to every one of us. Are we going to defend the same thing that we are opposed to right now? Are we going to behave the same way? History tells me yes. Evidence tells me yes. Ibrahim Sankara, Ibrahim Sila, and all these people, say Humbalo and others, were all out here talking about everything against the Jammeh government. Today, those are the people who are championing what is happening in the Gambia. What would tell me that tomorrow when you are there, you're going to behave any different than the way those people are behaving right now? What assurance do you have to tell me? And again, I mentioned this, there are Gambian entrepreneurs everywhere, there are African entrepreneurs everywhere that can build our nation. I mentioned this, there's no way that China and other emerging economies can be better than us. We have the human resources. We have the natural resources. And yet we don't have the leaders. We don't have the citizens who have what it takes to lead a nation, who have what it takes to lead a village, or what it takes to lead. Everywhere you go, there is chaos. There's land dispute everywhere. There's backstabbing everywhere. Yes, we recognize that we have a cross-section of our society that are always going to be people who are going to party, they're going to enjoy, they're going to do their stuff. But we also need to have a cross-section of our society that are serious people, that care about the legacy of our country, that care about the development of our country. We're less than 2 million people. Takes you 4 or 5 hours to drive from one end of Gambia to the other. And yet our country continue to be where it is. We continue to amass large debt in the Gambia. We don't have the leaders. We don't have the courage to stand up. Everybody would have something to say. Everybody has something to say. We need to strengthen our political parties and we need to hold our leaders to account. We need to find new leaders. If you're out there and you think you have more to offer to the Gambian people, go out there and offer yourself to the Gambian people. And when it comes to elections, and we must, every one of us must act the best interest of our country. It is a sad reality that the Gambia is recognized as producing some of the best talents around the world, and yet our country continues to perform so well, so poorly. Because our people does not have the guts to stand there and to do what is right for our country. We are becoming numb. When Yahya Jammeh was killing people, at the end of the day, everybody now just want to hear about, oh, Sangam disappeared. Somebody disappeared, somebody died. We have seen all the junglers. We have seen all the killings, and we were saying that these people are from Senegal and from Casamas. They're not from Casamas. The system and the environment that created those junglers is a system and an environment that we as Gambians created. We need a mindset, a change of mindset, but our mindset would never change without our leaders setting the pace. Anywhere in the world, any success society in the world is led by leaders who have visions. What is the vision of President Barrow? Building roads, creating foundations, youth movements that are going to be violent against our citizens. That's his vision. Staying in power for another 15 years, ignoring all the efforts and all the sacrifices that we have done. It is absolutely disgraceful for us to continue to live like this. It is absolutely degrading for us to continue to live like this. But as I mentioned again, I gotta get off here because I couldn't get my my guest to join me here, Krubali and others. I guess Gambia, it is a very, very sad reality that we have. And I mentioned it again, every one of you watching knows people that you think they're very, very brilliant. And yourself, you all have what it takes. You all have what it takes. You have the heart. What we don't have is the leadership or the courage to lead or the political will to lead. That's what we need. We need to find among our citizens who are willing to lead, and we entrust them with the power to lead. And you don't have to be a president to lead. You don't have to be a vice president to be a leader. You don't have to be a minister to be a leader. If you're a political party leader, you are a leader. If you're head of a department, you are a leader and you can lead you on your own way. You can champion change. Change starts with us as citizens. Change starts with us as citizens. And therefore, I think we all have what it takes to move our country forward. Well, we're going to have to sacrifice the sacrifice. We're going to have to walk the walk. We're going to have to talk the talk in order for us, our country to get to where it is. We as a generation has a duty. This is our only opportunity. This is our only opportunity. I can tell you, sometimes I spend sleepless nights thinking about the Gambia. And when you talk to our people, they tell you the Gambian is like this. The Gambian be nilamel. Gambian be nilamel. Gambian be defa selfish. Gambian be defa this. Defa defdi. Defa lalda. We are Gambians. If I say Gambian be defa selfish, am I saying that I'm selfish? If I say the Gambian is incompetent, am I saying I'm incompetent? I'm saying the human being has the capacity to be cruel. The human being has the capacity to be able to kill. The human being has the capacity to be corrupt. To prevent that, you have to build the systems that are going to hold these human beings accountable, that are going to hold our citizens accountable. We have to build the system. The systems cannot build themselves. If you are a director, you are a managing director, you are a manager somewhere else, build a system that is going to hold our citizens accountable. That tomorrow, if you're not there, that legacy will continue. It is a sad reality. But until we as citizens take it upon ourselves to look in the mirror and say, I cannot be where I ought to be until you are where you ought to be. That I cannot rise up to success unless you rise up with me. You cannot push everybody else down and you are successful and you become the king and everybody else worship you. We have to collectively lift each other up. We have to motivate each other. We have to elect leaders who can represent, who can inspire our generation, who can inspire a generation of leaders to rise up and sacrifice for our country and for our nation. It's not about me. It's not about you. It's not about any individual. It's about us collectively. What happened to us? So as I mentioned again, if you were not aware of what is going on, you should be aware now. You should be aware now that President Barrow's political ambition to get some parties, political parties to support him If you're not aware of the game that he's playing, I want to correct something. Somebody said it's Yankuba Sonko who is appointed as the Interior Minister, not Usman Sonko, and that is very correct. I apologize about that. It is Yankuba Sonko, but he was one time the prison director. He was one time IGP. He was there when the prisoners were being dragged out of Mile 2 and being executed. When Dr. Jani and others were being tortured. When Solo Sandy was tortured to death, who was the IGP? And those are the people that President Barrow brought close to him to advise him. Who is advising President Barrow on this appointment? Who? Can somebody tell me? I think my party is smarter than that. Yes, some of these people, the good, the bad, the evil, it comes with it. But I think the dude is smarter than that. But who is advising President Barrow? That is what I want to know. I want to know somebody coming out there and saying, I am the one who is advising President Barrow on this. Is it Dr. Ture? Is it who? Demba Baldeh? Is it Baji, whatever his name is? That is my suspicion. My suspicion of Jamia cronies, people who have been there for so long, who were riding the system during Jamia's time. Those are the people who are in bed with President Barrow. And before you can trust a person, look at how he treats his friends. Look at how he treats his allies. That's what President Barrow has become. That's what he has become. He would sacrifice anybody for his political agenda. But we as Gambians have a duty, we have a responsibility to step up and say, no, not in our name. If you are serving in government and you see any letter anywhere, leak it out. Leak it out. And not only leak it out, we as citizens must begin to file court cases against the government. Gambian people should not be taking a ride anymore. We must not be taking a ride anymore over our dead bodies, over our grave. I said this before, if you get to the president, you're standing on the grave of individuals. But only people who are grateful, only people who are very conscious of their legacy and their history would pay attention to those things. President Barrow doesn't have what it takes. It's not about him. I could care less about him. It's the office of the presidency and the position that he occupies. He has no capacity to learn and grow on the job. He doesn't have what it takes to look at people in the eyes and then fire them based on the national interest, not based on political interest. The people that he removed, UDP folks and all that, wasn't because they were not doing a good job. It was because they were against his political aspirations. And of course, this is not anything close to supporting the UDP or whatever it is. But I could care less. In fact, you had President Barrow stood up on one position and one stage and then say to Halifa Saleh that it was easier to say something than to do something. He was mocking Halifa Saleh directly, telling him that you were appointed and you refused to take it. And now you're saying we don't have a system change. Gambia, nobody's going to change the system for us. We have to change it ourselves. But I implore our young people to get involved. Our young people must get involved. You must show that you must take ownership of Gambia. That country belongs to you and I. That country doesn't belong to anybody else other than you and I and all of us. So you have a duty and you have an obligation to stand up for what is right. You have a duty to stand up for what is correct, for what is legal for our country. And I can tell you that it is legal for citizens to remove their government through popular uprising. If that government does not, elections are every 5 years. If you cannot wait for 5 years, you can hold your leaders accountable. Go protest in their doors. Go to the National Assembly and protest. Go to the presidency and protest. As Dr. King said, protest far right. Protest as far as you can go. This is our generation and this is our time. And we must take ownership of the Gambia, or we all sit down and watch the Gambia go down at our detriment. And there are people that would say, I'm not interested in politics, or I'm not a politician, so therefore I'm not going to get involved in all these things. That's what we had all along. We had all along. People decided to look the other way. Where is our country now? Where are we now? That is what I have for you guys today. And again, I wanted to go back that the reason why President Barrow should resign is because he promised the Gambian people that he should resign. That African leaders have always perpetuated themselves in power. They have always perpetuated themselves in power. When you give them an inch, they take a mile. That is why, in order to create a society, to create a system where our leaders would have the honor and the dignity to come in and promise something and deliver it, it's not about the 3 year is not a mere promise. Governments always promise, leaders always promise and fail. But this is about the legacy of our country. It's about the future of our country. It's about the future leadership of our country. If President Barrow were to resign today, Dr. Ture comes in. And then we can go to elections in 5 years. Whoever gets elected, there is a term limit. Think about the future of the country. Don't think about your position. Don't think about your interest. Think about our collective interest as a nation. President Barrow would have set a precedent if he were to resign at the end of the 3 years. But he would also be replicating exactly what Yahya Jammeh did if he was to stay in power beyond the 3 years and beyond 5 years. And he would not be any better than Yahya Jammeh. And I can tell you, Yahya Jammeh's, the worst things about Yahya Jammeh wasn't only about the killings. It's about accountability. So I can tell you that President Barrow is not any better when it comes to accountability and when it comes to governing. The human rights violations, those are not things that the government has given us. Those are things that we earn as Gambians. We earn the freedom and the dignity. That is happening in the Gambia right now. So I appreciate you joining me. And again, I'm going to be coming back here every week. I'm going to be coming back here every week. I'm going to be engaging our citizens. We need to engage each other, and we need to make sure that we don't make this about partisan issue. I could care less. I could care less which political party comes to power next. Whoever comes to power, the same way I held Yahya Jammeh responsible or accountable is the same way I would hold Barrow accountable. It's the same way I'm going to hold somebody else accountable. If I am there, hold me accountable equally. That is the least expected of our citizens. And again, I'm going back to the leaking. Leak as much as you can. It's not a national security threat. It is a false narrative to say that leaking government document is a threat against the national security. It's not. What document has been leaked that shows that the Gambia is dealing with international communities? What project? What document? No, you're paranoid. Whistleblowing is a responsibility of our citizens. If you're appointed in a position, it is your responsibility to protect government as much as you protect, the citizen, the interest of the country. So leak it out, send it to us, and we will publish it. We will publish it, and if citizens feel that they need to hit the streets to protest, go protest as far as you can. And always protect what belongs to you. Protect what belongs to you. Protect your own safety and your own security. I believe that we have responsible citizens. But I believe that, the people that we have in the Gambia that are serving in our government are less than desirable. Some of them are very, very, very unpatriotic. They just care about their own interests. And we have to call them out. We have to call them out. It's our duty. It is our responsibility. And if you find yourself there, if you're a director right now and you're watching this, if you're a permanent secretary and you're watching this, if you're appointed in any government position and you're watching this, it is your responsibility. It's your duty to do what is right for the country. You are there because we put you there. You are there because we paid you to be there. And therefore, if you're honest and you're sincere in what you do, then you must act in the best interest of the country. The country doesn't belong to anybody. It belongs to all of us. And you must not shy away from seeing somebody crossing the lines or doing something that is not right. Go to them and show them that what they're doing is against the interest of our country. And it stops with every one of us. Do not bribe anybody. If you do, you're contributing to the corruption. You're contributing to the corruption. So therefore, I personally, I do not mind the people that are parading President Barrow right now. We've seen these people parading President Jammeh, calling us as enemies of the state. We've seen it. Do not let that deter you. You have a responsibility and you have your own legacy. You have your own responsibility, your own duty. So I thank you very much again. If you have any questions, you can put out your questions and I'll be more than happy to answer the questions. Otherwise, I wanted to come in here. I see Krubali saying that he cannot connect live. Should be able to connect him. Should be able to bring him in. I'm going to invite a couple of people. If you want to join, you could. If you're not able to join, it is perhaps my setting. And if that's the case, I apologize. I'm going to be back here next week. We're back full time. The future of our country is at stake. The future of our people is at stake. We've been slapped on the face by the very people that we elected. And we cannot take it lying down. We cannot take it lying down, and we must not take it lying down. We must speak out. We must march the march. Thank you very much again for watching. May God bless you, and more bless the Gambia. Thank you very much.